The buzz of a direct deposit notification jolted me from the chaotic tangle of end-of-month figures and reports. I glanced at my phone screen. The figure of $5,500 glowed in the balance alert, an amount that, 5 years ago, when I was just taking my first steps in this profession, I would not have dared to imagine even in my wildest dreams. My name is Chloe. I'm 30, and I'm a creative director at a prestigious communications agency in New York City. From the outside, everyone looks at me with envy. They say I have a dream life, a modern woman with a career on the rise, a stable husband and family, but only I knew the truth behind the perfect facade. That supposed stability was actually as fragile as a soap bubble. Kevin, my husband, is an ordinary junior accountant with a salary that barely reaches a third of mine. I never considered it a problem. For me, marriage is an act of balance. If one is good at earning money, the other takes care of the home, as long as there is harmony between the two. However, the storm began to brew the day Kevin timidly approached me with the idea of bringing his mother from her small town in Ohio. He took my hand and said in a choked voice, "Chloe, honey, my mom is all alone back home. She just had a mild stroke, and the left side of her body is paralyzed. I'm her only son. Not bringing her here to care for her would be ungrateful. And if something happened to her while she was alone, I would regret it for the rest of my life." Seeing his red-rimmed eyes, my heart softened. I am a sentimental person by nature, and having lost my own mother at a young age, I value motherly love enormously. Despite my incredibly busy work schedule, I nodded. I had bought this 3-bedroom apartment with my savings before we got married. Welcoming my mother-in-law wouldn't be a problem in terms of space. It would just be a matter of one more plate, a bit more silverware, one more person to care for. I couldn't have imagined that nod would be like opening my door to a wolf. Helen, my mother-in-law, arrived in New York looking pitiful, one arm hanging limp, dragging a leg, and a constant grimace of pain on her face. Feeling sorry for her, I hired a cleaning service. I personally took care of her meals and medication every night, but Helen turned out to be more difficult than I had anticipated. She complained that the soup was watery, the chicken overcooked, and she criticized me for coming home late from work and neglecting the house. Some nights, just as I managed to get into bed, exhausted after an endless day, she would knock on my bedroom door, demanding I take her to the bathroom, even though I had bought her a bedside commode and placed it right next to her bed. Kevin always said the same thing: "She's old and she's sick. Chloe, just have a little patience with her." This morning was no different. After a sleepless night due to Helen's moans and groans about her aching bones, I hastily put on my makeup to get to an early morning meeting on time. My mind was a whirlwind with the new project. I left the apartment like a hurricane, and halfway to the office in a cab, I realized with horror that I had forgotten my ID card on my dresser. Without it, I couldn't get through security to the conference room. I sighed and asked the driver to turn around. Arriving at the building's entrance, I glanced at my watch. I could still make it if I hurried. I opened the door with my fingerprint, intending to sneak in, grab the card, and leave without waking my mother-in-law. But as I pushed open the heavy oak door, a scene froze me in place, the blood turning to ice in my veins. In the living room, the twangy sound of a Dolly Parton song was blasting from the large flat-screen TV. Helen, my mother-in-law with a half-paralyzed body, who the night before needed my help to take every step to the bathroom, was now standing in the middle of the room, moving her arms and feet to the rhythm of the music with astounding agility. She held a feather duster, dancing and twirling with a loud laugh, without the slightest trace of being someone who had suffered a stroke. Kevin was sitting on the sofa, recording his mother with his phone, laughing his head off. "Mom, you're an incredible actress. Yesterday, I saw the look of panic on Chloe's face when you complained about your stomach ache." Helen stopped, her hands on her hips. Her voice was strong and clear, completely different from her usual weak, whispering tone. "I told you, son. You just have to listen to me. Your wife is a fool. Just by faking a little illness, she serves me like I'm a queen. Hey, let's see what you're going to do. Amber is about to give birth. Hurry up and switch wives, please. This house needs an heir, not a woman who only knows how to bury herself in work like Chloe. 3 years, and she hasn't been able to give me a grandson. She's worthless." I stood motionless at the door, clutching my purse so tightly that my nails dug into my skin. Every word from my mother-in-law was like a sharp knife tearing at my heart. It turned out that all my compassion, my patience, and my generosity were nothing but a joke to them. And Kevin, the man with whom I shared my life, had conspired with his mother to deceive me in such a shameless way. Kevin replied to his mother with a chuckle. "Relax, Mom. I'm already planning it. I'm just waiting to get a little more money out of her. Her salary went up this month. The bank notification yesterday showed $5,500. Let her support us a little longer, and then I'll bring Amber and the baby here." Well, you know what to do. And remember to buy Amber a nice gift basket from that high-end deli so she eats well. My grandson is much more important than your useless wife. Helen grimaced, threw the feather duster on the sofa, and walked briskly to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of water with an agility that surpassed that of a young woman. I covered my mouth to keep from sobbing. My world was collapsing. The wooden door in front of me not only separated me from my home, but also from the false illusion of happiness I had painstakingly built over 3 years. Switch wives, Amber, a grandson. Those words danced in my head, forming a devastating tornado that wiped out any remaining marital affection. I took a step back. Hot tears streamed from my eyes, but my heart was as cold as ice. I wanted to storm in, to scream and vent my frustration, to overturn that hypocritical coffee table, to unmask that miserable pair. But the hand that was about to push the door stopped midair. The logic of a director, forged over years, abruptly brought me back to harsh reality. If I went in now, they would deny everything. They might even accuse me of being paranoid. Or Helen would throw herself on the floor, faking a seizure. I had no proof other than my own eyes and ears, and words are carried away by the wind. Who would believe me when, in front of everyone, Kevin always played the part of the model husband and Helen that of a sick, helpless old woman? I closed the door stealthily, each movement as silent as a thief in her own home. I backed away toward the elevator, walking like a lost soul. I collapsed on the emergency stairs of the building. My whole body trembled uncontrollably. Anger and pain mixed, forming a heavy stone on my chest that made it hard to breathe. I remembered the times Kevin had hinted at the topic of children, the times he sighed deeply when he saw me bring work home at night. It turned out it was all preparation for a despicable conspiracy. Not only was he unfaithful, but he had a child with another woman. And now he and his mother were planning to replace me, to leave me on the street empty-handed after squeezing every last drop out of me. "All right, Kevin, you want to act? Then I'll act with you until the very end," I muttered, wiping away a tear rolling down my cheek. I took out my phone and sent a message to my boss, asking to be an hour late due to a family emergency. Then I took a cab straight to a tech store around the corner. I chose 3 tiny spy cameras of the most sophisticated kind that could be hidden in an artificial flower vase, a wall socket, and a portable charger. Holding those small devices in my hand, I felt a bitter irony. I never thought the day would come when I would have to use these things to spy on the people I called family. But the raw truth I had just discovered had taught me a very expensive lesson. The human heart is the most unpredictable thing there is, and blind trust is a poison you administer to yourself. I returned home after more than an hour. Before opening the door, I took a deep breath, adjusted my expression, and forced a tired but concerned smile. The door opened. Inside, the country music had been silenced. Helen was lying on the sofa, covered with a thin blanket, moaning weakly. Kevin was by her side, massaging her legs with an expression of deep concern. Seeing me, he looked up with a flash of surprise in his eyes that quickly turned into reproach. "Why are you back at this hour?" "I forgot my ID card. Mom's legs are hurting her a lot. I was waiting for you to make her some broth, and you didn't show up." Seeing this clumsy performance, I suppressed the nausea rising in my throat. I walked in, maintaining my usual apologetic tone. "I'm sorry. I forgot my ID and had to come back. On the way, I bought some vitamins for Mom." "Does it hurt a lot?" "I'll go to the kitchen right now to make you that broth." Helen half opened one eye to look at me and then closed it again, whispering, "It hurts. It hurts a lot, dear. I think this leg is going to be completely useless. Hurry up, I'm starving." I nodded and went quickly to my room to drop off my purse. Taking advantage of Kevin being busy playing the role of a devoted son in the living room, I quickly installed one of the cameras in the wall socket facing our bed. I cleverly concealed another in the vase on the TV stand in the living room, from where it had the widest viewing angle. The last one, I would find an opportunity to install later in Helen's room. Dinner that night was suffocating. I watched Kevin tenderly serve his mother food. I watched Helen bring the spoon to her mouth with a trembling hand, and tears almost welled up in my eyes, not from emotion, but from disgust. I felt sick from the food I had prepared myself, sick of this fake atmosphere of family warmth. That night, lying next to Kevin, I listened to his regular snores. Before, that sound gave me a sense of security, but today it sounded like the hiss of a venomous snake, hibernating and waiting for the moment to strike its prey. I huddled at the edge of the bed, trying not to let my skin touch his. In the darkness, I opened my phone and connected to the cameras. The screen showed a dark and silent living room, but I knew that tomorrow, as soon as I walked out the door, that place would become the stage for the worst of farces. I remembered the sums of money Kevin had asked me for lately. $100 for a cousin's wedding gift, $300 to fix the car, $80 for some medicinal herbs for his mother. Those small amounts, when put together, suddenly seemed much more suspicious. Perhaps my hard-earned money wasn't for fixing cars or buying medicine, but for fattening up another woman and the child she carried in her womb. Switch wives. I sketched a cold smile in the dark. Let's see. When this roof collapses, who will be the first to be crushed? The next afternoon, the air in the office was cool thanks to the central air conditioning, but my heart burned as if I were sitting on hot coals. I hid in a quiet corner of the break room with my phone in hand, my eyes glued to the screen broadcasting live from the cameras at home. The city's bustle seemed distant. All that remained was the frantic beating of my heart. Helen, my pitiful, bedridden mother-in-law, was performing a daily scene that, had I not seen it with my own eyes, I would never have believed. On the phone screen, Helen was walking briskly through the living room, eating a pastry while watching TV. Every now and then, she would kick the robot vacuum because it got in her way. She muttered, "This useless thing just keeps spinning around and getting in the way. It's just wasting electricity for nothing." Seeing her so healthy and agile, I remembered her trembling appearance from the night before, when I had to feed her broth spoonful by spoonful, and an indescribable bitterness washed over me. It turned out my kindness and filial respect were just a toy for her entertainment. At that moment, Kevin's phone rang in the video. He had come home for lunch. Through the camera, I saw Kevin answer the phone hurriedly. His voice changed completely, becoming sweet and doting, very different from the brusque tone he usually used with me lately. He said, "Yes, I know, my love. Eat well so our little one grows strong. Don't worry about a thing. I just told Chloe to give me another $500 for Mom's medicine. I'll transfer it to you tomorrow so you can go buy things for the baby." I heard every word with a clarity that pierced my ears like needles. Chloe, my name, pronounced by my husband's mouth with such contempt. The $500 for his sick mother's medicine and care that I myself had withdrawn from my savings account that very morning turned out to be for supporting his mistress. I turned off the phone screen. My hands were shaking so much that I nearly spilled my glass of water on the table. The feeling of being betrayed didn't hurt as much as the feeling of being belittled, turned into a workhorse that toiled tirelessly to feed the happiness of others. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. I opened my banking app and began to review all transactions from the last 6 months. Before, out of trust in my husband, I rarely checked small expenses, but now, with the veil of secrecy lifted, those inert numbers suddenly came to life. $100, $300, $80. Transfers with descriptions like repaying a loan to a friend, gift for family back home, or buying medicinal herbs appeared with alarming frequency. The total sum amounted to several $1,000s, a considerable amount for a junior accountant. I asked a friend who worked at a bank to investigate the most frequently recurring account number. Just 15 minutes later, I received a message with the name Amber Gomez. Trembling, I entered the phone number associated with that account into the Facebook search bar. A profile appeared. The profile picture was of a beautiful, smiling young woman cradling her pregnant belly. I scrolled through her posts, photos of Amber at fancy restaurants, at expensive resorts where Kevin had told me he was going for work. She boasted about expensive gifts, huge bouquets of roses on special dates, accompanied by ambiguous messages about a late-found happiness and a responsible man. The most painful was a photo of designer baby booties with the caption, "A gift from Daddy for our little one. We love you, Daddy. K." For Kevin. There was no doubt. I looked at my own worn heels, the old purse I had been using for 3 years without daring to replace it. A feeling of deep indignation washed over me. I had saved every penny. I had sacrificed my most basic personal needs to build this family. And it turned out my hard work was going into a third party's pocket to support my husband's child with another woman. The stark truth before me prevented me from crying. The tears seemed to have dried up, leaving room for a fire of resentment that burned slowly. I took screenshots of all the evidence and saved them in a secret folder in the cloud. That afternoon, Kevin sent me a message saying he had a work dinner and would be back late. Helen, for her part, told me on the phone that she was going to physical therapy at a nearby rehabilitation center. I knew perfectly well that this therapy was an excuse to go play cards or gossip with some new friends from her hometown she had met at the local market. The apartment was empty and silent, almost eerily so. But this was the golden opportunity to find the missing pieces of this puzzle of betrayal. I went into Helen's room, the room she usually kept locked when she went out, but today, probably in her rush to go have fun, she had forgotten. The smell of menthol ointment, mixed with the musty smell of an elderly person, hit my nose. The room was messy, with clothes thrown over a chair and pill wrappers on the floor. I began to search the closet, lifting layers of old blankets she had brought from her town and refused to let me wash or change. My hand bumped against a hard, cold object in the deepest corner of the closet. It was a round Danish butter cookie tin, rusted with time, the kind that older people in small towns used to store threads and needles. I pulled it out. Its weight made my heart beat faster. A bad feeling told me that inside this box were secrets darker than a simple affair. I held my breath and opened the lid. The lid popped off, and what appeared before my eyes almost made me scream in terror. Inside, there were no cookies or threads, but a clump of hair, pieces of carefully clipped fingernails wrapped in red paper. Next to it was a rag doll. On the doll's body, my date of birth was clumsily written in red ink, and it was filled with rusty pins. I took a step back, covering my mouth to stifle a scream. I recognized those strands of light brown, slightly wavy hair. It was my hair. The nails painted in a nude color were also mine. She had been secretly collecting them from my hairbrush and the bathroom trash can all this time. What kind of witchcraft was this? In the 21st century, she still believed in these superstitious and barbaric practices to curse her daughter-in-law. Still in shock, I saw a small black leather notebook at the bottom of the tin. I picked it up, trembling, and began to flip through the pages. Helen's handwriting was clumsy and full of spelling mistakes, but the content was frighteningly clear. She meticulously noted the time I returned from work, what I ate. Even my menstrual cycle was marked in red. Day 15. Chloe came home late, looking upset. I put a little of her hair in her soup. Day 18. Today is her ovulation day. Kevin has to do his job. I hope the spell works and she can't conceive. Day 20. Amber says the baby is fine. My grandson is kicking hard. It won't be long before we kick this wretch out of here. As I read, a chill ran down my spine. I thought she was just a greedy and selfish old woman from a small town, but I never imagined her heart could be so evil and dark. She not only wanted my money and for her son to leave me, but she also wanted to destroy my ability to be a mother, to curse me with her dark rituals. I sat on the cold floor, clutching the notebook. I didn't cry. I just felt a wave of disgust that reached my throat. Where was I living? In a house or a den of demons? The people I called husband and mother watched me eat, sleep, laugh, and talk every day with the intention of pushing me to my death. I quickly took out my phone and photographed all the evidence from the cookie tin, every page of that sick notebook. Then I carefully put everything back as it was, returning the tin to the dark corner of the closet. I couldn't alert them yet. I needed them to keep acting, to remain confident, so I could weave a bigger net and catch the whole nest of snakes. As I left Helen's room, I felt as if I had just escaped from a tomb. The dim evening light filtered through the living room window, but it couldn't dispel the chill that enveloped my soul. I looked in the mirror and saw a strange woman with a cold gaze looking back at me. That night, Kevin came home slightly drunk. He mumbled something about a grueling work dinner and stumbled towards the bathroom. Kevin's habit hadn't changed in years. When he got home, he would leave his briefcase on the sofa and his laptop always in sleep mode. He rarely shut it down completely. Normally, I respected his privacy and had never felt the curiosity to open his computer, but today, that respect had become an unnecessary luxury. I waited to hear the sound of the shower and crept over to the laptop on the desk. I opened it. The screen lit up, asking for a password. I tried Kevin's date of birth, then our wedding anniversary. Both were incorrect. My heart raced. An idea crossed my mind. I remembered the information from Amber's Facebook profile I had found that afternoon. Her birthday was June 12th. Trembling, I entered the sequence 1206, followed by the last 2 digits of her birth year. Enter. The desktop appeared instantly. I felt a sharp pain, as if I had been slapped. The password to his computer, which contained his entire work world and secrets, was his mistress's birthday. The last fragile hope that Kevin was just going through a passing affair completely vanished. I had no time for self-pity. I quickly scanned the desktop folders, which looked normal with messy work files, but my intuition told me it wasn't that simple. I went into the D drive and looked for folders with generic names like Reference Documents or System 32. After a while, I discovered a hidden folder named New Project. I clicked on it, and a series of image files appeared. They were ultrasound scans of the fetus, from a tiny dot to a clear 4D image of a baby sucking its thumb. Under each image were careful notes of the date. Son, 12 weeks. Son, 20 weeks. And the most recent, son, 26 weeks. Looks just like Dad. Next to them were intimate and explicit photos of Kevin and Amber during his work trips. They were hugging, kissing, laughing happily. The look in Kevin's eyes towards her was filled with an affection he hadn't shown me in a long time. But what left me breathless were not those photos, but a PDF file named Loan Agreement. I opened it. It was a scan of a promissory note for $50,000. The borrower was me. The signature below was 90% identical to mine. The lender was a completely unknown name. The content clearly stated, "I have borrowed this money for a business investment that resulted in losses." I covered my mouth to keep from cursing. It turned out they had planned everything with this level of detail, a fake debt of $50,000. In case of divorce, this debt would be considered a joint debt, or worse, they would attribute it entirely to me, forcing me to sell the house and car to pay it off. They wanted me to leave empty-handed or even burdened with debt while they enjoyed the assets I had built with so much effort. This was no longer a simple sentimental matter. It was a conspiracy of fraud and misappropriation of assets. Kevin had not only betrayed me physically, but also wanted to corner me, to steal my future. The water in the bathroom stopped running. I jumped and quickly connected a small USB drive I always carried with me. I copied the entire New Project folder at lightning speed. The progress bar moved slowly, mocking me. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. 90%. 95%. Kevin started to open the bathroom door. The sound of the latch echoed. Done. I pulled out the USB, closed the laptop, and quickly got into bed, covering myself with the blanket and pretending to be asleep. Seconds later, Kevin came out drying his hair, glanced at the bed, and muttered, "Sleeping so early. What a useless woman." He went to the desk, turned on the computer to check something quickly, and then turned it off. I lay under the blanket, my back drenched in sweat, clutching the cold USB drive in my hand. This was going to be a long night, but I knew I now held the weapon that would make them pay a heavy price. The next morning, under the pretext of a client meeting, I escaped the suffocating atmosphere of the office. I met with Sarah, my best friend from college, now a renowned lawyer specializing in divorce and property disputes. The coffee shop, hidden in a quiet and discreet alley, was perfect for a conversation that shouldn't be overheard. When Sarah finished looking at the evidence I showed her, From the videos of Helen walking normally to the ultrasounds and the fake promissory note, her face hardened. Her usual professionalism gave way to an expression of anger and concern. Sarah adjusted her glasses and looked me straight in the eye. Her voice was serious. "Chloe, you are in an extremely dangerous situation. This isn't just a simple affair. Your husband and his mother have meticulously planned how to throw you out on the street. That $50,000 promissory note, if you can't prove the signature is forged, you'll have to take on that debt. And proving a forged signature isn't something that happens overnight. In the meantime, they can get rid of joint assets at any moment." I clutched the hot coffee mug, feeling its warmth, but it couldn't warm my frozen heart. "I know, Sarah. It hurts a lot, but I'm not going to give up. I want a divorce now. I want them out of my life." Sarah shook her head and took my hand. "No, absolutely not. Right now you're at a disadvantage. If you file for divorce, they'll pull out that promissory note and demand a division of assets, deducting the debt from your share. Besides, this Amber person is about to give birth. If you get a divorce, Kevin will have a clear path to bring them into the house. You would lose on all fronts." Sarah paused and lowered her voice, but her words carried immense weight. "And most importantly, Chloe, under no circumstances can you get pregnant right now. If you were to get pregnant, or if you already are, everything would become even more complicated. They could use the child to tie you down, or worse, they might try to harm the child if it interferes with their plans to take everything. Do you understand what I'm saying?" A shiver ran down my spine as I remembered the notebook with the notes on my ovulation and the voodoo doll in the cookie tin. Sarah's warning fit frighteningly well with what I had discovered. They wanted me to be unable to have children, or if I did, my child's fate and mine would be in their hands. So what do? Just sit and wait for them to destroy me? I asked in a trembling voice. Sarah smiled. A sly smile from someone accustomed to legal battles. "Who said you should just sit still? We're going to use their own strategy against them. You have to pretend you know nothing, continue playing the role of the good wife and devoted daughter-in-law. But inside, you need to start moving your assets. I'll guide you on how to legally transfer your assets, putting them in your parents' names or someone you trust. At the same time, you need to gather more evidence of Kevin's money transfers to Amber to prove he's diverting joint assets for illicit purposes." Sarah took out a piece of paper and scribbled some notes. Then she passed it to me. "And above all, try to find their weak spot, their Achilles heel. Everyone has greed, and Kevin and his mother's is insatiable. Use that very greed to set a trap for them." I looked at Sarah's notes, and my determination grew stronger. From being a helpless victim, I felt like I was regaining control. She was right. I couldn't let my emotions get the best of me. I had to be cold, calculating, and more ruthless than them. "Thank you, Sarah," I said in a firm voice. "I understand. I won't let them get away with this. The game has just begun." Leaving the coffee shop, the midday sun beat down on the pavement. I put on my sunglasses to hide my swollen eyes, which now reflected a steely determination. I would go home, continue to cook, wash the dishes, and be a good wife. The next morning, as the first rays of sun filtered through the blinds, I was already awake. Kevin was still sleeping beside me, his steady snores a stark contrast to my internal storm. I got up quietly, went to the bathroom, and locked the door. In my hand, I held a fake pregnancy test with 2 lines that I had bought online the day before. I looked at myself in the mirror, at my haggard face, and took a deep breath to prepare for the performance I was about to give. I knew that from this moment on, I was no longer just Chloe, a submissive wife and daughter-in-law. I had to become the best actress in my own life. I turned on the faucet to let the water run and began to make retching sounds as if I had morning sickness. The sound echoed in the morning silence, loud enough to wake those sleeping in the other rooms. Less than a minute later, I heard hurried footsteps towards the bathroom door. Kevin was knocking insistently, his voice sleepy but full of concern. "Chloe, what's wrong? Open the door." I splashed water on my face to simulate sweat and slowly opened the door. I leaned against the frame with one hand on my chest and the other holding out the pregnancy test with 2 red lines. I looked at Kevin with teary eyes and a trembling voice. "Honey, I'm pregnant." Kevin froze, his eyes fixed on the test. For a moment, I saw confusion and panic in his face, but the instinct of a greedy, deceitful man quickly took over. He grabbed the test, looked at it again and again under the light, and shouted with joy, "Really? 2 lines. Oh my God, Mom, my wife is pregnant!" Kevin's shout was like a trigger. The door to Helen's room flew open. My mother-in-law, the one who was supposedly half paralyzed and had complained yesterday about not being able to move, shot out of her room at such a speed that she forgot her cane. She rushed towards us, her eyes shining like headlights. "Where? Is it true?" "Let me see." Helen snatched the test from Kevin, held it close to her eyes, and let out a cackle. The same laugh I had heard through the camera. "The ancestors have blessed us. Finally, there's luck in this house. 2 red lines like that can't lie." She turned to me, her attitude changing 180 degrees. Her usual piercing and critical gaze transformed into that of someone looking at a treasure, a pure gold baby-making machine. She took my arm, her rough hand squeezing mine with a tenderness that gave me chills. "Dear daughter-in-law, walk slowly. Go to bed and rest. You poor thing. With this morning sickness, you must be exhausted. Let Mom make you some chicken broth to nourish you, so my grandson grows up healthy and strong." I let them lead me to bed, feeling a true wave of disgust. Seeing Helen walk with a firm step, her back straight, without a trace of her usual stooped and suffering posture, made me wonder how they could act so well and how I could have been so blind. It turned out her illness was just an excuse to torment me, and now this fake pregnancy was the excuse for her to reveal her true greedy nature. Kevin sat on the edge of the bed, stroking my hand. "How are you feeling? Do you want anything?" "I'll go buy it. From now on, you don't have to do anything. Leave it to Mom and me. You just need to take care of your pregnancy." I looked into his eyes, searching for a glimmer of sincerity, but I only found cold calculation behind his fake smile. He wasn't happy about being a father again, but because his plan was going accordingly. Or maybe he was already thinking of a new conspiracy. "I'm a little tired," I replied in a whisper, forcing a weak smile. "But I'm worried. I have so much work, and Mom is so frail." "Worried about what?" Helen yelled from the kitchen amidst the sound of knives and cutting boards. "Ask for reduced hours at work. I'll take care of the house. I'm fine now. Seeing my grandson on the way has cured me. You rest and take care of yourself. You just have to give me a grandson to carry on the family name." I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep to hide the coldness in my gaze. That evening, the dinner table was surprisingly full. No more boiled vegetables and tofu with tomato sauce. Instead, there was beef tenderloin, chicken stew with herbs, and fish soup. Helen kept piling food on my plate, repeating that I had to eat for 2 so her grandson would be intelligent and strong. Kevin, beside me, joined the chorus. He peeled fruit for me, poured me orange juice. If this had happened a week ago, I probably would have cried with emotion, thinking that finally my dedication was being rewarded. But now, looking at all that food, I felt like I was at a hypocrite's banquet. I ate a little and then put down my silverware, sighing thoughtfully. Kevin noticed and asked, "What's wrong, honey? Aren't you feeling well? Still nauseous?" I shook my head. I hesitated for a moment and then said in a low voice, but loud enough for both of them to hear, "No, honey. I was thinking about my parents. My mom called yesterday. She told me they just sold the old family farm upstate for a very good price." Hearing the words "sell farm and good price," Helen's eyes lit up. Her chopsticks paused in midair. Kevin also asked hastily, "Oh yeah? For how much? And what do they plan to do with the money?" I looked down at my plate to hide a mocking smile. "For over $500,000, honey. They say since I'm their only daughter and now I'm living in a small apartment, they want to buy me a house here in the city so I can have my own space and live more comfortably. They've already seen one they like for around $500,000, and they want to put it directly in my name." The dining room fell silent. The only sound was someone swallowing hard. I looked up and saw Helen and Kevin exchange a look filled with greed and calculation. A $500,000 house was the dream of their lives, a figure Kevin could never reach with his salary. I added the final blow. "But my dad says that since I'm their only daughter and now I'm pregnant and in delicate health, he's putting a condition on it." I have to give birth without any problems, and the baby has to be born healthy. Only then will they put the deed in my name, and the child's. If anything were to happen, they would donate all the money to charity." Helen slapped her thigh and laughed out loud. "My goodness, your parents are so thoughtful. With me here taking care of you, don't you worry. I'm sure everything will be perfect. $500,000. No, that house is a blessing for you and my grandson. We can't let it slip away." Kevin squeezed my hand, his voice trembling with excitement. "That's right, honey. Your parents love us very much. We have to make an effort. You just rest and take care of yourself. If you need anything, just tell me. Our life is about to change." I nodded with a faint smile, thinking ironically to myself. The trap of greed was set, and the prey had taken the bait. With the prospect of a $500,000 house, I was sure they wouldn't dare do anything to this pregnancy, at least until I gave birth. This would be my temporary safe conduct, giving me more time to gather evidence and transfer my assets. That night, around 9 p.m., Helen brought a steaming bowl of herbal chicken broth to my room. The intense aroma filled the space. She said kindly, "Chloe, dear, drink this." I simmered it for hours. These are all good herbs I had sent over from a special shop in the Catskills. It's very good for the fetus. Drink it while it's hot so it works. I looked at the dark broth with chunks of chicken and goji berries floating in it. My intuition told me something was wrong. Why so much enthusiasm? Herbs from the Catskills? Where did she get the money and contacts to get them so quickly? She had only been in the city for a few weeks. I remembered the pieces of fingernails and the voodoo doll. Helen's malicious gaze. "Yes, thanks, Mom. Just leave it there to cool down a bit, and I'll drink it in a moment." "I'm very full," I said, trying to sound natural. Helen hesitated for a moment, looking me up and down, then reluctantly nodded. "Well, but drink it all. Don't throw it away. It's a waste." She turned to leave but glanced back at the bowl one more time before closing the door. I waited for her footsteps to fade and locked the door. I took a thick plastic bag. I poured the entire broth into it, tied it tightly, and hid it at the bottom of the trash can, camouflaged with some tissues. I didn't know what was in that broth, whether it was a tonic or a poison. But one thing I was sure of, I would never again allow anything that came from their hands to enter my body. I would go to bed hungry that night, but at least I knew I was safe. The next morning, while Kevin had already left for work and Helen was absorbed in a soap opera in the living room, I secretly took out the broth sample from the previous night and put it in a small jar, intending to have it analyzed or ask my pharmacist friend to check it. But before leaving the house, my eyes fell on the box of prenatal vitamins on the dresser. It was a gift Kevin had bought me the day before. He said they were imported from Germany, the best on the market, and cost a fortune. I picked up the box. The packaging looked high quality, with its seal and well-printed German letters, but when I opened it, a strange, pungent smell hit me, different from the mild scent of the vitamins I had taken before. I took out a few pills. They were a pale yellow color, with a somewhat rough surface, not as smooth and uniform as pharmacy pills. And most importantly, they didn't have the brand name or any code engraved on them. Suspicion grew in me. I searched online for images of that medication on the manufacturer's official website. The real pill was dark brown, oval-shaped, and had the brand's logo clearly engraved. The one I held in my hand looked like a cheap, handcrafted tablet. You could even see loose powder. My blood ran cold. Kevin had switched the pills. He had bought the original box, but the contents were something else. Why? To save a few dollars and give them to his mistress? Or was there a more sinister plan behind these pills? I remembered Sarah's warning. They might try to harm the baby or your health. I wrapped a few pills in a tissue and put them in my purse. I decided to take both the broth sample and the pills to my pharmacist friend, Laura. On the way, my heart was burning. The idea that the man I shared my life with was trying to poison me sent shivers down my spine. At Laura's pharmacy, after examining the pill with a magnifying glass and doing some quick tests, she frowned gravely. "Chloe, these are not prenatal vitamins. Based on their appearance and how they dissolve, I suspect it's some kind of pressed herbal remedy or a low-quality counterfeit drug. It contains ingredients like safflower and motherwort." These herbs have a very strong anticoagulant effect and are completely contraindicated in pregnancy because they can cause a miscarriage or hemorrhage. A miscarriage, I stammered, pale as a ghost. Yes, if you were actually pregnant and took this, the risk of losing the baby would be very high. Where did your husband buy this? Laura asked angrily. I collapsed into a chair, trembling. It turned out they didn't want me to have this child. They acted happy in front of me, promised me the house, but behind my back they were giving me pills to terminate the pregnancy. They wanted me to have a spontaneous miscarriage so they wouldn't look guilty and, at the same time, have an excuse to blame my delicate health. That way, they would get the inherited house or force me into a divorce with nothing for not being able to have children. Kevin, how could you be so cruel? Would you be willing to kill your own child if it were real, just for greed and selfishness? I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my skin. Luckily, this pregnancy was fake. Luckily, I had been vigilant. Otherwise, I would now be a mother who had lost her child, lying in a pool of blood while ignorantly thanking her executioners. Laura, I need you to analyze this thoroughly, and the broth sample too. I need conclusive proof, I said in a firm voice, my eyes burning with anger. All right, I'll send it to the lab immediately, but be very careful. Living with those monsters is too dangerous, Laura said worriedly. I nodded and left the pharmacy. The sun was shining, but I felt no warmth. Inside me, there was only one goal: to unmask those demons in sheep's clothing and make them pay for every pill, for every bowl of poison they had prepared for me. That night, I lay motionless in bed, listening to Kevin's steady breathing. I waited until he was deeply asleep after their celebratory feast and gently took his hand. I pressed his thumb on his phone's fingerprint sensor. The screen lit up. I quickly went into his banking app, silencing the notifications so as not to make a sound. I no longer checked his transfer history. I had enough proof of that. This time, I went to the notifications from his digital wallet and food delivery apps. Kevin used them a lot to order lunch or make small purchases. I scrolled through a long list of orders: fish stew for $8, roasted chicken for $15. These were for home, for me and Helen, to maintain the facade of care. But interspersed were much more expensive orders, delivered to another address: special infant formula for $30, a seafood platter for $150, a designer maternity dress for $80. All delivered to apartment 1206, Parkview Towers, on the Upper East Side. Parkview Towers was a luxury apartment complex. The rent there was no less than $2,000 a month. Where did Kevin get the money to rent that apartment and maintain his mistress in such luxury? Undoubtedly, from the money he had been swindling from me, from the hidden funds he had accumulated, and from the fake debts he was planning to saddle me with. I memorized the address and put the phone back in its place. The next morning, I took the morning off from work under the pretext of a prenatal checkup. Of course, I went alone to give my husband a surprise. I took a cab to Parkview Towers. Standing in front of the imposing building, its glass windows reflecting the sun, I felt small and ridiculous. I, the legitimate wife, dressed simply, who drove an old car if not taking a cab, living in a middle-class apartment I was paying for in installments. Meanwhile, my husband's mistress, the one destroying my family, lived like a queen in this ivory tower, enjoying luxuries bought with my hard work. I sat in a cafe across the street, keeping a close watch on the entrance. Around 10 a.m., a cab pulled up. Kevin got out, loaded with shopping bags. He was laughing and talking animatedly as he went around the car to open the door for a woman. Amber got out, heavily pregnant, wearing the designer dress I had seen in the order history. She clung to Kevin's arm coquettishly, and he helped her walk tenderly. His gaze, full of love and adoration, bent down to kiss her forehead and stroke her belly, saying something that made her laugh. That image was like a bucket of boiling water. This was the same man who, the night before, had sworn to take care of me and our future child. The same man who had given me pills to make me miscarry. The contrast between the model husband with his mistress and the monster trying to harm his wife made my stomach churn. I took out my phone and took dozens of photos. I recorded a video of them entering the building lovingly. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from rage. Rage for having trusted, for having sacrificed myself so foolishly, rage for how unfair life is to those who are sincere. Returning from the luxurious Parkview Towers, I felt like each step weighed a ton. The image of Kevin helping Amber out of the car, the loving gaze he gave her, replayed in my mind, sharp and painful like a knife in my heart. I thought I was strong, but faced with the raw truth of a betrayal wrapped in luxury, my heart shattered. I stopped at a small park near home, sitting on a bench for an hour, letting the wind dry my tears of frustration. I pulled myself together before entering the lion's den. When I got home, the atmosphere was suffocating. Helen was watching TV. Seeing me, she turned it off abruptly and looked at me with a mix of scrutiny and fakery. Kevin also came out of the room, a mug of warm milk in his hand. He approached solicitously. "You're back, honey. Where have you been?" Mom and I were worried. "Drink this, to get your strength back." I accepted the mug, smiling to myself. It was surely another act in their caregiving charade, or perhaps it contained another pill of unknown origin. I pretended to take a sip and set it on the table, complaining. "I had a client meeting. I'm exhausted, honey. This project is urgent, and I'm constantly running around." Kevin sat beside me, taking my hand and stroking it. His voice was deep and concerned. "You see? I told you. If you keep obsessing over work, how is the baby going to be okay? Mom and I have talked about it. Why don't you quit your job? Stay home and take care of the pregnancy. It's safer. Going back and forth like this makes me uneasy." Helen, from the other side of the room, added in a preachy tone. "That's right, dear. For a woman, the most important thing is her husband, her children, her home. Earning money is a man's job. Why are you killing yourself competing out there? Kevin's salary is decent now, enough to support the whole family. Quit, stay home, and Mom will serve you food on a silver platter so the baby grows strong." I looked at the pair of them. The disgust rose in my throat. They wanted me to quit my job, not for my health or this fake pregnancy, but to cut my social ties, to eliminate my source of income and independence. They wanted to turn me into a dependent woman, confined to the kitchen so they could control me as they pleased. Once I had no money and no voice, they could kick me out onto the street at any moment. I pulled my hand away from his and leaned back on the sofa, sighing with regret. I'd like to quit too. Who wouldn't want to be at home, served and attended to? I left the sentence hanging, observing their reaction. "But?" Kevin asked eagerly. "You know, my parents promised the $500,000 house, but on the condition that the baby is born healthy and that we have some money to renovate it to their liking. My dad says a woman who doesn't earn her own money has no say. They're afraid that if I stay home depending on you, your family will look down on me. Besides, if I finish this project successfully, I'll get a bonus of almost $30,000 at the end of the year. With that and my salary for the next few months, I was planning to use it all to make that house spectacular, worthy of the family heir." Hearing the figure of a $30,000 bonus and the mention of the house, Helen's eyes gleamed like headlights. She swallowed hard. Her air of superiority vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Kevin was also stunned. The greed was plain on his face. $30,000, Helen repeated in a trembling voice. "Yes, at least, Mom. If I quit now, I'll not only lose the bonus, but also have to pay a penalty, and my parents will think I'm lazy. And what if they change their minds about the house?" I said, drawing out the words with a worried expression. Kevin waved his hands quickly. No, if that's the case, keep working, but take it easy. Don't overdo it. Money is important, but the baby comes first. Finish this project, get the bonus, and then you can rest." I nodded, laughing inwardly. Money can do anything. Just by appealing to their infinite greed, any argument, love, or feigned concern became irrelevant. I got up and went to my room, leaving them whispering. They were probably already calculating how to spend my non-existent bonus. That night, Kevin went to shower and left his tablet on the desk. He was always careful with his phone, but he mainly used the tablet for reading news and watching movies, so he was more careless. However, he didn't know that I had secretly synced his phone's messages to the tablet a few days earlier, taking advantage of him falling asleep drunk. I quickly checked the apps and stopped at the messages. A series of unread messages from my love glowed in red. I opened the conversation, my heart pounding. They were messages from Amber. It seemed she was losing patience. "How long are you going to keep stringing me along? You said your old wife was going to quit her job, that you were going to get a divorce. So why is she still so happy-go-lucky? I saw a photo of her with a client today, laughing and having a good time. Are you going to sort this out or not? My belly is huge. The baby is about to be born, and if he doesn't have a father, don't blame me if I do something crazy." Then there was a voice message. I turned the volume down to the minimum and put it to my ear. Amber's voice was shrill and full of resentment. "I'm giving you 1 more week. If you don't kick her out of the house, I'm coming to her company with this belly and making a scene. Let's see if her perfect director image holds up then, and your department head position too. Don't think I'm stupid." I put down the tablet and smiled bitterly. It turned out their love nest wasn't as idyllic as it seemed. Amber was scared, jealous, and insecure. She was afraid I wouldn't give up, that Kevin would deceive her. And most importantly, she knew nothing about the $500,000 inheritance trap Kevin was falling into. Kevin was caught between 2 fires. On one hand, his greed for my assets. On the other, the pressure from his mistress. I knew I couldn't wait for her to come to my office and make a scene. Although I didn't care about my reputation, I needed time to complete the transfer of my assets and gather more evidence. I had to destabilize Amber even more, make her attack Kevin instead of me. I took an old phone and a prepaid SIM card from a secret drawer. I wrote a message in the tone of someone who knew the situation and sent it directly to Amber. "Hi Amber. I'm an acquaintance of Kevin's. I see you're pregnant and going through a tough time, so out of compassion, I'm warning you. Kevin has no intention of divorcing. His wife just inherited a $500,000 house, and he's conning her into putting it in his name too. You're just a side piece to him. Wake up, girl. Or your son will be born without a father, and you'll be left with the reputation of a homewrecker and empty-handed." After sending the message, I turned off the phone, broke the SIM, and flushed it down the toilet. I imagined Amber, enraged, reading it. Suspicion is the poison that kills any relationship, especially one built on deceit. Just 10 minutes later, I heard Kevin's phone ringing in the bathroom. He didn't answer. The phone stopped, and then rang again with frantic insistence. Kevin turned off the shower and rushed out. Still wet, he grabbed the phone, looked at the screen, and his face changed. He glanced quickly in my direction, where I was turned away, pretending to be asleep. He tiptoed out to the balcony and closed the glass door. Through the soundproof glass, I could see his agitation, his gestures as he tried to explain himself. Amber was surely giving him a piece of her mind, questioning him about the house. Kevin would have to work hard to calm her down, and in his panic, he was more likely to make mistakes. On Sunday morning, the atmosphere at home was strangely tense. Kevin got up very early, well-dressed, but the dark circles under his eyes betrayed a sleepless night. The argument with Amber was probably still echoing. He was drinking coffee, glancing at me occasionally with suspicion. Helen was making breakfast, muttering about going to church to pray for her grandson. Right after breakfast, Kevin put down his mug and cleared his throat. "Chloe, I have the day off today. I'm going to take you for a checkup, okay? You've been complaining about being tired lately, and I'm worried. I've arranged with a friend who's the head of gynecology at a private hospital. He's very good. We'll go there for a full checkup, see if it's a boy or a girl, and then we can tell your parents to make them happy." I choked on my toast. A checkup, and with a doctor friend of his? If I went there, my fake pregnancy would be exposed instantly. That hospital was famous for its technology. I couldn't fool them. This was undoubtedly a trap from Kevin. He wanted to confirm the pregnancy, or worse, he and his doctor friend could conspire to do something to me. "No, honey, I already went last week. The doctor said everything was normal. Besides, moving around so much tires me out. I'd rather stay home and rest." I tried to excuse myself. "No way," Kevin replied with unusual harshness. "I don't trust some random place. This one is trustworthy. I've already asked him as a favor. Get dressed. I'm going to get the car. Mom, you come too. It'll be fun for you." Helen immediately joined in. "Of course. Let's go to the checkup, dear." I want to see my grandson's little face too. We'll go in our car. You don't have to walk, so you won't get tired. They were cornering me. I knew I couldn't refuse any longer. The more I resisted, the more suspicious they would become. I reluctantly agreed. I went to my room to get dressed, my mind racing to find a way out. I secretly slipped a small vial of dark red liquid into my purse. It was fake blood, something I had prepared just in case, a favor from a friend who works in special effects makeup. The car started. The air inside was suffocating. Kevin drove with a serious face. Helen in the back seat wouldn't stop talking about baby names. I was in the passenger seat, my hands on my belly, sweating profusely despite the air conditioning. Halfway there, in the busiest part of the city, I began my performance. I winced in pain. Ouch, it hurts, honey. My stomach hurts so much. Kevin turned around, startled. What's wrong? Where does it hurt? It hurts so much. Like it's being twisted inside. I hunched over, clutching my abdomen and panting. Honey, I think I'm bleeding. I discreetly squeezed the small packet in my pocket, letting a bit of the red liquid stain the seat. Helen leaned forward from the back, and seeing the stain on my light-colored dress, she screamed, "Oh my God, blood, oh dear, my grandson!" Kevin's face drained of color, he almost hit the median. "Chloe, calm down. I'm taking you to my friend right now. No, we won't make it, it's too far." I screamed, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I'm dying of pain. Let's go to the nearest hospital. Save our son, please. Save our son." At that moment, the fear of losing his treasure and the $500,000 house overcame his plan. Helen also screamed, "Kevin, pull into that international hospital right there, quickly. If anything happens to my grandson, I'll die." Kevin had no choice but to swerve and pull into the international hospital just a few yards away. His plan to take me to his doctor friend had failed. I slumped back in the seat, breathing a sigh of relief, thankful for my acting talent. But the next hurdle was the most important one. How would I fool the doctors at this hospital? The car stopped at the emergency entrance. Kevin picked me up in his arms and ran inside. Helen followed, screaming as if the house were on fire. Nurses brought a gurney and took me to the emergency room. Kevin tried to follow, but a guard stopped him. Family must wait outside. The emergency room door closed, isolating me from the chaos outside. Lying on the gurney, I quickly wiped my sweat. The doctor on duty was a middle-aged man. He looked at me professionally. "Where does it hurt? Have you bled a lot?" I knew I couldn't keep pretending in front of a professional. I sat up and looked him in the eyes, speaking quickly and urgently. "Doctor, please, help me. Nothing is wrong with me. The blood is fake." The doctor was stunned, frowning. "What are you saying? Are you joking in a hospital?" "No, sir. I'm not joking." I grabbed the sleeve of his coat. My tears were real now, tears of humiliation and fear. My husband and his family are conspiring to harm me. They were forcing me to go to a doctor they know to do something shady. I had no other choice but to do this, to come here. "Please, doctor, help me. I need a report that says I have a threatened miscarriage and need complete bed rest." The doctor looked at me intently. His expression changed from doubt to surprise, and then to compassion. He saw the faint bruises on my arms from accidental bumps at home, saw my haggard and distressed face. Perhaps in his years of practice, he had seen many tragic stories. "I cannot interfere in your family matters," he said in a serious but less harsh voice. "But I am a doctor, and I only diagnose based on the truth. If you are not pregnant, I cannot write that you have a threatened miscarriage. It would be unethical." Desperate, I pulled a small, crumpled piece of paper from my bra, an ultrasound scan. It was my ace in the hole, a forgery I had asked Laura, my pharmacist friend, for just in case. The paper showed my name, a 6-week pregnancy, a weak heartbeat, and a 10% placental abruption. Then, "Doctor, could you give me some advice? I'll tell them you examined me and this is the result. Please, don't give me away now. If they find out I'm not pregnant, they'll kill me." The doctor took the fake ultrasound and sighed. He looked towards the door, where Kevin was pacing like a caged animal, and then back at me, at the trembling woman before him. He finally gave a slight nod and handed me back the paper. I will note your real condition in your chart, but I will not say anything to your family. You go out and explain it yourself. I will only prescribe you vitamins and a mild sedative. Thank you, doctor. Thank you so much. I bowed, feeling a huge weight lifted. 15 minutes later, I walked out of the emergency room with difficulty, my hand on my belly and my face pale. Kevin and Helen rushed towards me. What happened? What did the doctor say? Is the baby okay? I handed Kevin the fake ultrasound. My voice was a broken whisper. The doctor says the pregnancy is very weak, that there's a 10% placental abruption, a threatened miscarriage. He scolded me for moving around so much, for worrying too much. Now I have to stay in bed on complete rest. I can't move or make any effort. Otherwise, I burst into tears. Kevin took the paper with trembling hands. He didn't understand the medical terms, but he saw the words threatened miscarriage and guarded prognosis. His face turned gray. The dream of the $500,000 house was crumbling. Helen beat her chest. My God, my grandson. It's your fault for not taking care of yourself. I told you to stay home, and you insisted on going to work. Mom, shut up! Kevin yelled, sweating. He was afraid my agitation would affect the pregnancy. Home. Right now. From now on, you stay in bed. I'll bring you your food and drinks. If we lose the baby, don't blame me for being cruel. I nodded and leaned on him to help me walk to the car. In the arms of my betrayer, I felt disgust, but also a deep satisfaction. During the days of bed rest, I felt like a prisoner in my own home, but a prisoner with eyes and ears everywhere. Through the synced tablet, I knew Amber was getting desperate with Kevin's delays. She bombarded him with ultrasound pictures, baby shopping bills, and threats to go to my company. Kevin was cornered, trying to be the perfect husband to me to secure the inheritance while trying to placate his mistress. That afternoon, Kevin came home from work earlier than usual, his face haggard. He brought a bouquet of red roses, the same kind he used to give me when we were dating, but now I only saw a garish, fake red in them. He put the flowers in a vase and sat beside me. Honey, I heard something interesting, and I wanted to talk to you about it. I pretended to be tired. What is it, honey? My head hurts. I just want to sleep. Kevin started to massage my temples. It's important. It has to do with our son's future. Mom told me that a cousin from back home is selling a piece of land on the main road to pay off his son's debt, who's going to work abroad. It's a bargain. Half price. If we buy it now, in a few months, we can sell it for double or triple. It's our golden opportunity. I smiled to myself. What land? It was all a lie. Amber was probably asking him for money for a house, and he had made up this story to get it from me. I sighed. I'd like to, but where do we get the money? Our savings are in a fixed-term deposit. If we take it out now, we'll lose all the interest. Kevin insisted. And what does bank interest matter compared to this? Why don't you ask your parents for an advance? Tell them it's for a business. I'm sure they'll do it for their grandson. I looked into his eyes and saw the greed in them. He not only wanted my money, but also my parents'. I shook my head, crying, No, honey, my parents hate loans. Besides, with my pregnancy, they just want me to rest. If I ask them for money, they'll worry, and it could affect my health. Why don't you ask your mother? At the mention of Helen, Kevin fell silent. He knew his mother was a bottomless pit. He looked thoughtful, frustrated. I turned away, pretending to sleep to hide my cold smile. The next morning, I took advantage of Kevin being gone and Helen gossiping with the neighbors to get up. I went to Kevin's home office, looking for any paper about that phantom land. The drawer was locked, but it wasn't hard to find the spare key hidden under a cactus. Inside, there were no deeds, just a thick envelope from an insurance company. I opened it. It was a life insurance policy. Insured, Chloe Garcia. Beneficiary, Kevin Ruiz. Sum insured, $500,000. My hands were shaking. I read the clauses. One was underlined in red. In case of accidental death, 200% of the sum would be paid. That is, if I died in an accident, Kevin would receive $1 million. The policy had come into effect 2 weeks earlier, just when my suspicions began. I sank into the chair, frozen. It turned out my value to him was not that of a wife, but of a $1 million contract. He had bought a life insurance policy for me, with him as the sole beneficiary. What did that mean? Was he waiting for, or even planning, an accident? I cried with rage, and for my own stupidity. I thought they only wanted my money, but they wanted my life. They wanted me to die so they could live a life of luxury on my grave. I quickly photographed every page of the contract. Then I put everything back as it was. I had to stay calm. If I made a scene, they would destroy the evidence, and my life would be in real danger. I went back to bed, trembling. I stared at the ceiling with dry eyes. Kevin, if you want to play this game of life and death, I'll indulge you. But the one who falls won't be me. At noon, Helen came back with a thermos of soup. In my room, I put on the headphones connected to the living room camera. I knew that around this time, Kevin usually called his mother, and so he did. Helen's phone rang. She put it on speaker, her voice echoing through the apartment. "Hello, son. How's it going? Is Amber leaving you alone?" Kevin's voice came through clearly. "She's going crazy, Mom. She says if I don't give her $30,000 for a down payment on an apartment this weekend, she's going to spill everything. I'm desperate. Chloe is a cheapskate. She won't give up a cent." "So what are you going to do?" Helen asked. "Let Amber make a scene. If Chloe finds out and files for divorce, we lose everything, including her parents' house." Kevin was silent for a moment, and then his voice turned cold and cruel. "Relax, Mom. I have a plan B. Remember that life insurance policy I took out on her? In 2 weeks, the waiting period for accidents is over. This weekend, I'll take her on a trip, pretending it's to relax before the baby is born. I've found a resort in the Catskills, an isolated place with lots of cliffs and fog." "You mean—" Helen hesitated, but there was no fear in her voice, only a sick excitement. "An accident." "Mom," Kevin replied with a dry laugh. "A pregnant woman, a moment of carelessness, a slip, and she falls off a cliff. It's something that happens. That way, we'll have the insurance money, $1 million, and we can bring Amber and the baby here. And since I'll be her sole heir, her parents' house will be ours too. But is it safe? What if the police investigate?" Helen worried. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll do it without a trace, no witnesses. Besides, we have her medical history, her dizzy spells, her low blood pressure. No one will suspect a thing. You just take good care of her, make sure she trusts me. That way, when we go on the trip, she won't be on her guard." I took off the headphones, shaking with rage. Plan B, accident, cliff, those words repeated in my head. They didn't see me as a person, but as a sacrifice for their greed. I looked out the window. The sky was gray, threatening a storm. I knew there was no turning back. If I didn't act first, I would die, and my death would be the springboard for their wealth. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my skin until it bled. "All right, a trip. I'll go. But it will be a one-way trip, just for you, Kevin." After hearing Kevin's ruthless Plan B, I knew I needed irrefutable proof, something that would demonstrate his murderous intent before it happened. The recording of his conversation with Helen was valuable, but he could argue it was a joke or an exaggeration. I needed something more direct, from his own mouth, directed at a third party. That night, Kevin came home in better spirits. He probably thought his perfect plan was about to be executed. He started cooking, whistling cheerfully. In my room, I took out the prepaid phone and a voice modification software I had installed on an old smartphone. I adjusted my voice to sound like a professional, polite, but slightly robotic telemarketer. I waited until Kevin was on the balcony, relaxing with a cigarette after dinner, and I called him. Through the crack in the window, I saw him pick up the phone, hesitate at the unknown number, and finally answer. "Yes? Who is this?" he asked abruptly. I took a deep breath and began my performance. "Good evening, Mr. Ruiz. I'm calling from the Customer Service Department of X Insurance. I'd like to confirm some details regarding the policy you purchased for Mrs. Chloe Garcia." Hearing the word insurance, his attitude changed. He became alert, but also interested. "Yes, go on. Is there a problem?" "No, not at all, sir. It's just that our system registers that you showed a particular interest in the accidental death indemnity clause during a trip. I wanted to confirm that in the event of the insured's accidental death in tourist areas, mountains, or near rivers and lakes, the process will require a police report from the area. Were you aware of this? Kevin was silent for a few seconds, and then his voice became urgent, revealing his greed. Yes, I know. But a question. If the accident happened in an isolated place, without cameras, and only with the testimony of a family member, would the indemnity still be paid? And how long would it take to pay out? That question was exactly what I was hoping for. It betrayed his intention to seek a perfect accident in a secluded spot. I kept my voice professional. In that case, the witness's statement and the coroner's report would be the most important pieces of evidence. If the documentation is complete, we would pay out 200% of the policy within 15 business days. You can rest assured. Perfect, he exclaimed, unable to hide his enthusiasm. Thank you. I understand. Thank you. He hung up abruptly. I watched him take a long drag from his cigarette and exhale the smoke towards the sky with a satisfied smile. He didn't know that the entire conversation had just been recorded. His question about an isolated place and the payment timeline would be his sentence. I saved the audio file in my secure folder. My heart was still pounding, but I felt the exhilaration of a hunter who has just lured their prey into the trap. That night at dinner, Kevin was unusually attentive. After clearing the plates, he made some chamomile tea and sat beside me. He took my feet, placed them on his lap, and began to massage them. If this had been before, I would have been moved. But now, every time his hand touched my skin, it felt like a cold snake slithering over me. Honey, you've seemed so stressed lately. With work and the pregnancy, it hurts me to see you like this. What do you say we get away this weekend? I found a beautiful resort in the Catskills. Fresh air, quiet, perfect for you to rest. I feigned surprise. The Catskills? But it's a long drive, and with my threatened miscarriage, is it safe? Relax. I'll drive carefully. We'll go slowly. The doctor said your state of mind is the most important thing. Being cooped up here isn't good for the baby. Let's heal our relationship, rekindle the flame before our child arrives. What do you think? Hearing the word heal from the mouth of the man who planned to kill me for an insurance payout seemed like a macabre joke. Was he taking me to heal or to the grave? I looked into his eyes and saw not love, but the reflection of dollar bills and a life of luxury with his mistress. I smiled weakly. All right, if you're so worried about us, I'll listen to you. A trip to remember before the baby is born. I also want to have some time alone with you in a quiet, secluded place. Kevin's face lit up. Of course, it has to be secluded to be romantic. You just pack some nice clothes. I'll take care of the rest. It will be the most unforgettable trip of your life. I nodded, turning my head to hide a tear. The next morning, with the excuse of buying things for the trip, I went out. I went straight to Sarah's office and gave her a USB with all the evidence. She gave me precise instructions, insisting that my safety was the top priority. Then I went to a spy shop. I bought a tiny recorder that I could hide in my bra and a GPS tracker that I sewed into the lining of a pair of sneakers. I had to make sure that no matter what happened, Sarah and the support team I had hired could find me. Back home, I locked myself in my room and executed the final step of my plan. I sent an anonymous message to Amber from the prepaid phone. Hi, Amber. It's the Good Samaritan from the other day. Just a heads up. This weekend, Kevin is taking his wife on a romantic getaway to the Lookout Mountain Resort in the Catskills. He's told his friends he's going to rekindle the flame, that he's going to break up with you to focus on his wife and the $500,000 inheritance. If you don't hurry, you'll be left without a husband and your son without a father. I sent the message and broke the SIM. I imagined Amber, furious in her luxury apartment. Suspicion would push her to act. I was sure she would go there to make a scene. Her appearance would be the variable Kevin wasn't expecting, the one that would turn his murder plot into a tragicomedy. I started packing my suitcase, stroking the maternity clothes. This play needed the entire cast to be entertaining. You wanted to play big? Well, I'll give you the greatest show of your lives. On Saturday morning, the sky was clear, but the atmosphere in the car was somber. Kevin had woken up early, whistling as he packed, acting like the happiest man in the world. Helen saw us off at the door with a look that was a mix of curiosity and satisfaction, like someone watching a fattened animal before the slaughter. "Have a good time, daughter-in-law. Be careful. Don't climb on any dangerous places. Don't fall. My grandson is the most important thing. If something happens to you, don't blame me." "Yes, Mom. I'll be careful." "You take care too," I replied, forcing a smile. Was she wishing me a good trip, or warning me of the end her son had planned for me? The car started. Kevin drove slowly, asking me every few minutes if I was okay. His excessive concern put me on high alert. Halfway there, he offered me a bottle of water that was already open. "Drink some. It's alkaline water, very good for pregnant women." I took the bottle. The seal was broken. Was there something in it? A sedative? A sleeping pill? I couldn't risk it. Taking advantage of him overtaking another car, I pretended to drink, but spilled some of the water onto a tissue. Then I dropped the bottle on the car floor. Oh, I'm so clumsy. I dropped it. "Never mind, I'll drink when we get there." Kevin seemed annoyed but hid it. "It's okay. I'll buy you another one when we arrive. Get some sleep." I closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him glancing at me from time to time with a cold expression. He was checking if the supposed drug was taking effect. The soft music playing in the car sounded like a funeral march. I pressed my hand on my belly. This trip wasn't taking me to paradise, but into the wolf's mouth. After 2 hours, we arrived at Lookout Mountain Resort. It was on an isolated mountainside, shrouded in fog, a beautiful but sinister place. Kevin had booked a secluded bungalow in the highest area with a view of a deep valley. It was the perfect place for an accident, without witnesses or cameras. "Do you like it?" Kevin whispered in my ear, hugging me from behind. "It's beautiful." "Very peaceful," I replied, holding my breath. "Rest for a bit." "I'm going to take a shower," he said, and went to the bathroom. As soon as I heard the water, I acted. I quickly searched his travel bag. In a secret compartment at the bottom, I found a small, unlabeled glass vial with a clear liquid, a pair of latex gloves, and some plastic shoe covers. Gloves for a romantic trip? The answer was obvious. He planned to drug me or make me slip with the liquid and push me into the void without leaving a trace. I trembled. I quickly photographed the evidence and put everything back in its place. Just then, the water in the bathroom stopped. I picked up a magazine and pretended to read. Kevin came out wrapped in a towel. "What are you reading, honey?" "We'll have dinner later. I've reserved a very romantic table." "Yes, I was just looking at what to see around here," I replied, smiling and meeting his gaze. In his eyes, I saw a murderer disguised as a perfect husband. This would probably be the last dinner of our marriage. Sitting across from Kevin, in the candlelight, I wondered how a person could change so much. The man who was tenderly cutting my steak was the same one who hid poison in his suitcase, waiting for the moment to push me into the abyss. He poured wine for himself and juice for me. Before giving it to me, he held my glass for a moment. "Let's toast, honey, to our trip, to our son's future, and to our eternal happiness." I looked at the juice. Did it contain something? I couldn't risk it. I smiled, raised my glass, and toasted with him. "Thank you, honey, for everything. I thought after so many problems we would never be the same again, but seeing you like this makes me so happy." Taking advantage of him drinking his wine, I pretended to drink my juice but spilled some on my dress. Oh, how clumsy. I've stained myself. While I dabbed it with a napkin, I poured most of the juice into it and put it in my purse. When Kevin put down his glass, mine was half empty. "Did you drink it?" "Was it good?" he asked, watching me. "Delicious. Very sweet," I replied, trying to calm my heart. He started reminiscing about our old times, painting a bright future with the house and the child. He sounded so sincere that if I didn't know the truth, I would have believed him. But then his phone rang. He looked at the screen and silenced it. His face tensed. "Why don't you answer?" "It could be important," I asked innocently. "It's an unknown number, probably spam. Forget it." "Tonight is just for us," he smiled forcedly. The phone rang again. This time, I saw the name on the screen. My love. It was Amber. I knew my message had made her nervous. She was calling to check, or maybe she was already here. Kevin turned off his phone in frustration. There. No more interruptions. Eat before it gets cold. After dinner, Kevin looked at his watch impatiently. He looked at me strangely, wondering why I wasn't showing signs of drowsiness, but his plan was still on track. Honey, the moon is beautiful. Let's take a walk. Behind the restaurant, there's a path that leads to a viewpoint over the cliff. They say the views are spectacular. I looked out the window. The night was dark, and the fog was thick. That path, I had checked on a map. It was the most isolated area of the resort. No lights, no cameras, on the edge of a precipice. It was the place he had chosen to kill me. All right, let's go for a walk, I said. I put on a shawl. I touched the hidden recorder in my bra and the tracker in my sneaker. Everything was ready. We went out onto the path. The mountain wind was icy. Kevin squeezed my hand, which was cold and sweaty. He walked fast, dragging me towards the chosen spot. Honey, slower. I'm pregnant. I'm getting tired. We're almost there. You're going to love it. He didn't slow down. As we went deeper, the fog thickened. We reached a bend with a rock wall on one side and the abyss on the other. Kevin stopped, let go of my hand, and turned to look at me. His face, in the moonlight, looked like that of a stranger, cruel and ruthless. Do you like it? He asked, his voice echoing off the rock. I backed away, scared. It's nice, but it's cold. Let's go back. Scared? With me here? He approached, cornering me against the rock. He put his hand in his pocket, where I knew he had the poison and gloves. You know, Chloe, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. The house, the insurance, my freedom, it's all within my grasp. My heart was pounding, not with fear, but with anticipation. It was the moment of truth. I needed him to confess everything. Honey, what are you saying? I don't understand you, I said with tears in my eyes. The wind howled. Kevin stood in my way, his shadow covering me like a ghost. He started to laugh, a wild laugh that broke the silence of the night. He slowly put on the latex gloves. You don't understand? Or are you playing dumb? He hissed. There was no more honey, only contempt. You think I love you? You think I want that child? I'm sick of your bitter face, of your obsession with work. I need money, Chloe. A lot of money to take care of Amber and my son, to live the life I deserve. I pressed myself against the rock, my hand on my belly, speaking loudly so the recorder would pick up everything. Kevin, you've been unfaithful. You want to leave me for her? And our child? How could you... Child? You think I bought that you're pregnant? He interrupted. Whether you're pregnant or not, you're going to die today. Only with your death will I have everything. I took out a life insurance policy on you, Chloe. $500,000, which, with the accident clause, becomes $1 million. $1 million you would never earn in your entire life. With your death, you will make your final contribution to this family. I took out a life insurance policy on you. That was the confession I needed. His motive for killing me. Rage overcame my fear. You're a monster. If you kill me, aren't you afraid of justice? I shouted, activating the emergency signal on the tracker. Justice? He sneered, approaching with the open vial. The chemical smell filled the air. In this godforsaken place, who will know I killed you? I'll say you got dizzy and fell. I'll cry. I'll play the part of the heartbroken husband. Who's going to suspect? My mother? She wants you dead more than I do. He lunged at me with a cloth soaked in the liquid. I dodged it, and his hand hit the rock. You dare to dodge me? He roared, enraged. He attacked again, pushing me towards the edge of the cliff. My feet slipped on the wet grass. The abyss was at my back. I knew I couldn't compete in strength. I needed help. I took a deep breath and screamed with all my might. Amber, did you hear that? He wants to kill me. Do you want to be next? My scream echoed through the mountains. Kevin stopped, bewildered. He didn't understand who I was talking to. And in that instant, from behind a rock, a figure appeared. It was Amber, heavily pregnant, panting from the effort of climbing the hill. She wore a bright red dress and held a phone, recording with the flash illuminating Kevin's face. Kevin was petrified, his mouth agape, unable to speak. The vial fell from his hands and shattered. He looked at Amber, then at me. His expression went from fury to panic. "Amber, what are you doing here?" he stammered. Amber didn't answer. She lunged at him, hitting him with her designer purse, screaming and crying. "Monster! Murderer! You were going to kill your wife! You lied to me! You said you were just getting a divorce!" It turned out that Amber, though greedy, had never considered murder. She wanted money, status, not to be an accomplice to a crime. My message and what she had just seen had awakened her deepest fear. If Kevin could kill the woman he had shared 3 years with, what would stop him from killing her and her child one day? "Calm down. Let me explain." Kevin tried to defend himself, but Amber's appearance had disarmed him. "Explain what? I heard everything. The $1 million insurance policy. You're a devil. I'm calling the police. I don't want to live with a murderer." "Shut up," Kevin yelled, grabbing her arm. Desperate, the beast in him resurfaced. "If you call the police, you'll lose everything. You think you have nothing to do with this? Where do you think the money I supported you with came from? You're an accomplice too." I watched the scene impassively. The two traitors were destroying each other. The show was about to end. I adjusted my clothes, took a step forward, and my firm voice cut through their shouts. "That's enough. You don't need to argue anymore. The police are already on their way." They turned to look at me. Kevin looked like a ghost. Amber was trembling. At that moment, the beams of flashlights appeared on the path, followed by hurried footsteps. "Police, stop!" the voice echoed. It was the 2 private detectives I had hired, along with resort security and several state troopers. They swarmed Kevin and pinned him down, cuffing him. The metallic click of the handcuffs closing was the end of his freedom and his dreams of wealth. Kevin was held on the ground, pleading, "Chloe, my love, save me." It was a mistake, a moment of madness. I looked at him without compassion. "It wasn't madness, Kevin. You planned everything very carefully. You just made one mistake. You underestimated the woman you despised. She knows how to fight back, too." Amber, to the side, trembled, pale, clutching her belly. She looked at me, tried to say something, but lowered her head in shame and fear. The state troopers and security team pinned him down, pushing his face into the cold, damp grass. The sharp, metallic sound of the handcuffs snapping shut on his wrists ended his freedom and his delusions of grandeur. Kevin struggled, shouting useless denials. "I didn't do anything. We were just arguing. You've got the wrong guy." I stood silently by the cliff's edge, the mountain wind whipping through my hair. I looked at the man I once called my husband, writhing on the ground. I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness. I approached the lead officer and with a trembling hand, I pulled the tiny, still active recorder from my bra. Its red light blinked like the pulse of justice. I said in a hoarse but clear voice, "Here is the proof, officers." It contains his entire confession, his plan to kill me and collect the insurance money, and there's more. I pointed to his travel bag lying nearby. In the secret compartment, there's a vial of a sedative and the gloves he was going to use. I also saved a sample of the water he gave me in the car. I'm sure it contained a sedative. Hearing this, Kevin collapsed, staring at me as if I were a stranger. He couldn't believe that the woman he considered a foolish, easy target had set such a meticulous trap for him. Amber, standing nearby, pale and trembling, was also taken to the station for questioning as a witness and a person of interest. I watched them lead Kevin away, hunched over, his head down. He had bought $1 million life insurance policy for my life, but all he got was a prison sentence and the scorn of society. Money, status, mistress, it all vanished like smoke on that mountaintop. That night at the police station, I wrote my statement. Every detail, every pain, every word was like opening a wound, but also like removing a tumor. When I finished, I knew I had closed that chapter of my life forever. I left the station at dawn. The cold air was pure and clean. News of Kevin's arrest for attempted murder and insurance fraud spread like wildfire. The next day at the office, I witnessed a tragicomedy. Helen, my paralytic mother-in-law, upon hearing the news, stormed into my workplace to cause a scene. She appeared disheveled, but without a cane and without a limp. She burst in screaming, "You bitch, give me back my son! You framed him, you snake!" Security guards tried to stop her, but she had surprising strength. She thrashed around, shouting, "Help! My daughter-in-law killed my son. She put him in jail." I watched her calmly. My colleagues and clients gathered around, some recording with their phones. I approached her and said loudly, "Mom, you look so well today. Weren't you paralyzed? Didn't you need help even to go to the bathroom? And now you're fighting like a champion with the guards." My words froze her. She looked down at her firm legs, then at the crowd. She blushed and then turned pale. In her rage, she had forgotten her role as an invalid. She tried to fake a faint, but it was too late. The videos had already captured her miraculous recovery. I told the crowd, "Look closely. This is the paralyzed mother-in-law I served for months. She and her son planned to kill me for a $1 million insurance policy. Now that he's been caught, she comes here to put on a show." Laughter and looks of contempt were directed at her. What an actress, strong as an ox, and she played sick. Like father, like son. What evil. Overwhelmed by shame, Helen let out a shriek and ran off, even forgetting to fake her limp. The video went viral. The divorce proceedings were swift. I walked into the courtroom with my head held high. Kevin, in the defendant's box wearing a prison uniform, looked like he had aged 10 years. He didn't dare look at me. With the evidence against him, he confessed. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison for attempted murder and fraud. As for the divorce, the judge awarded me all my premarital assets, including the apartment. The money from our joint account was mostly allocated to me as compensation. Kevin left not only empty-handed but with a huge debt and a long sentence. The $500,000 house, of course, never existed. When he found out, he screamed with rage in his cell, hating himself for falling for his own greed. Amber also had a bitter end. She gave birth to a boy, but a DNA test for paternity revealed he was not Kevin's son. It turned out that while she was with him, she was also in a relationship with another man. Upon learning this, Helen had an anxiety attack. Her dream of an heir and a life of wealth went up in smoke. Now, homeless, with her son in prison, she lived on the charity of distant relatives, enduring the scorn of her town. Leaving the courthouse, I took a deep breath. The sky was an intense blue. I didn't look back. The past was buried. I didn't hate them. They were already paying their price. The greatest punishment is not prison, but remorse and loneliness. I took a cab. "To the airport, please." I was about to start a new journey, not to run away, but to find myself. 3 months later, I am sitting on the balcony of a small apartment overlooking the ocean in San Diego. The wind sways my dress. I accepted a transfer to the company's West Coast headquarters, an opportunity I had turned down many times for my family. At 30, I am starting over in a new city, but with a peace I had never felt before. A message from my mother. "Honey, they say in town that Helen is now selling lottery tickets at the flea market. The other day she ran into an acquaintance and started crying, saying that if she had treated you well, she wouldn't be in this situation. I feel sorry for her. But that's karma." I smiled. I felt no resentment. Life is fair. Her late repentance doesn't erase the damage, but it closes our tragic story. I put down my phone and looked at the horizon, where the sun was sinking into the sea. The end of one day is the prelude to a brighter dawn. I remember the Chloe from 3 months ago, a woman full of fear, trapped in a farce. The Chloe of today is different. I am free, independent, and I love myself more than anyone. I have learned that happiness does not depend on a husband or empty promises. Happiness is in our own hands. When you are strong enough to let go of what you don't deserve, you discover how big and beautiful the world is. I raised my glass of wine and toasted the air. To Chloe. To this rebirth. I finished the glass, feeling the initial bitter taste transform into a deep sweetness. Tomorrow I have an important presentation, and I know I will shine. The scars of the past will always be there, but now they are medals that remind me of my strength. I smile at the wind, ready to fly towards new horizons, where only joy and peace await me.